The following podcast is a deep, shallow dive production.
And you're going to love it.
Okay, let's go.
Happy Friday, everybody. What is happening? Hope everybody is ready for the weekend. Hope you had a nice week. What was I going to tell you? Oh, I got some good news, actually. So over the past, basically all last weekend and then this past week, I launched a new website for Deep Shallow Dive. So if you get a chance, check out the new website for deepshallowdive.com. There is a mailing list now. So I think I'm finally coming around to trying to do this thing the right way and collect your email if you care to give that to me. I promise I'm not going to send you anything besides interesting stuff. But yeah, if you go to deepshallowdive.com, there should be a pop-up banner that pops up, or there's subscribe forms at the end of most pages, and you can just pop your email in there. That would be great. And basically, I'm going to start to really try and, build a community. And this is actually interesting. I think it's interesting. So the new deepshallowdive.com is built on the Squarespace platform. And the old deepshallowdive.com, which I don't even think that many, although you know what, I do get a lot of people, believe it or not, listening on the browser. It's my third highest place that people listen. Apple Podcasts is number 1, Spotify is number 2, and then my browser is number 3. So before, and actually now as well, you can listen to every episode directly on deepshallowdive.com. There's a couple places actually. You'll see a podcast button, you'll see a listen button, and you can listen to everything. So a lot of people do that, which honestly, that surprised me. But as far as the actual platform, so this is built on Squarespace and the previous one was built on Wix. Both of these platforms, I have to say, it is pretty incredible. I do know how to do things in graphic design, whether that's Photoshop or Illustrator. And then especially these days, I work a lot in Canva. Oh my God, I work a ton in Canva. Canva and CapCut, those are my two go-to software programs. Canva for anything's graphics related, and then CapCut for anything video related. But anyway, the point I wanted to make is if any of you need to build a website for anything, for your business, for yourself, for your kids, for whatever, hit me up. I can definitely give you a tremendous amount of advice and pointers. And like I said, these platforms now, Squarespace, Wix, I actually like Squarespace a lot better than I like Wix. If you're selling any type of e-commerce business or any type of product, Shopify definitely is the go-to platform for that. I use Shopify for my Boost Liquid Vitamins business. Gosh, I've used them for a decade now. They're absolutely the best platform if you're trying to sell physical goods. But then what's great about Squarespace is they have an entire digital platform where you can sell online courses and things like that, which absolutely is in my road plan or my roadmap. But anyway, for now, if you get a chance, check out deepshallowdive.com, at least pop around a little bit. There's a few interesting pages. You can actually buy the book there if you care to do that. And I will even sign it for you if you want. There's a pop-up that'll come up during checkout that says, do you want it signed? And I would be more than willing to do that. No extra cost, same price. And I'm basically selling it for the same price that it is on Amazon as well. $14.97 for the paperback and then $24.97 for the hardcover. All right, anyway, moving on. I wanted to, this is another interesting thing. So I've been sampling a ton of podcasts lately just to kind of see what other people talk about and all that. And I will tell you something kind of funny. I listened to Nikki Glaser's podcast. Man, she's really blowing up after the Tom Brady roast. I think she increased her following by several hundred thousands of people. And then it sounds like a lot of people have tuned into her podcast and all that. Good for her. I am excited for her because actually I thought she was hilarious during that. But here's the funny thing. I listened to a couple episodes and man, it's just her and a couple guys just like talking smack and nonsense. I don't know. I was like, okay. But I just kept listening. I don't know. I feel like, and the same thing with Smartless with Jason Bateman and I think Will Arnett and another dude. I listened to a couple episodes of their podcast, namely one with Larry David. And again, I mean, this is not being critical, but man, it's just like listening to people shoot the shit and like I don't know. I kind of didn't see the value in it. I mean, I listened to maybe 10 minutes and then I was like, what am I getting out of this? I'm not getting anything. I don't know. Gosh, maybe that ends up being the case. It's like the bigger you get, the the less content you talk about. I don't know. But anyway, that was interesting. I have had several people shoot me podcast requests. I would appreciate continual podcast recommendations. Because again, like I said, I do like listening to and sort of sampling what other people are doing. So anyway, all right, there's that. All right, a couple things in the news that have been interesting over the past couple days. But so TikTok officially sues the U.S. government, argues ban violates free speech. Man, a lot of free speech talk coming as of late. So they officially sued the U.S. government. I don't really see that going very far, but we'll see what happens. All right, Israel has begun the ground invasion in Rafah, even though it's like everyone and their mother says, don't do that, don't do that. They're doing it. So we'll see what happens on that. Okay, I am going to talk about a clip that has gone very, very viral on Instagram and on TikTok and actually on YouTube. There's a lot of chatter around this. Let me start to play it for you. This is Mitt Romney interviewing Antony Blinken, Secretary of State Antony Blinken, and then Mitt Romney, the soon-to-be retiring senator from Utah.
Why has the PR been so awful? I know that's not your area of expertise, but you have to have some thoughts on that, which is, I mean, as you said, why has Hamas disappeared in terms of public perception?
Sorry, there's a little feedback in this download, but so that was the first part that's caught a lot of flack, where basically he literally admits to Blinken, why has the PR been so awful? I mean, we're in a war, and innocent civilians, women and children are getting killed. It's weird and insensitive to refer to what the other side should be doing as PR.
An offer is on the table to have a ceasefire, and yet the world is screaming about Israel. It's like, why aren't they screaming about Hamas? Accept the ceasefire, bring home the hostages. It's said it's all the other way around. I mean, typically the Israelis are good at PR.
I mean, again, it's so interesting. Like, I don't even think he realizes what he's saying.
What's happened here? How have they and we been so ineffective at communicating the realities there and our point of view?
Well, look, I think there are two things. One is that, look, there is an inescapable reality, and that is the inescapable reality of people who have and continue to suffer grievously in Gaza, and that's real.
So Blinken there also admits there are people in Gaza that have suffered and continue to suffer. Actually, this is an interesting interview because I don't think either one of these guys realizes just how awful they're coming across.
And we have to be focused on that and attentive to that. At the same time, how this narrative has evolved, yeah, it's a great question. I don't have a good answer to that.
Well, I'll tell you how the narrative has evolved. We've seen it with our own eyes. I mean, citizen journalism, all of the insane, if you're paying attention to this stuff, like, the videos that have come through on social media, that's how it's evolved. We've seen it.
One can speculate about what some of the causes might be. I don't know. I can tell you this, and we were talking about this a little bit over dinner. with Cindy, I think in my time in Washington, which is a little bit over 30 years, the single biggest change has been in the information environment.
Seriously, I'm sorry about the feedback. I literally tried to find a better version, but I couldn't. Anyway, what he says there is definitely something that I think is going to become much more relevant. The single biggest change has been in the information department.
And when I started out in the early 1990s, everyone did the same thing. You woke up in the morning, you opened the door of your apartment, your house, you picked up a hard copy of the New York Times, the Washington Post, the Wall Street Journal. And then if you had a television in your office, you turned it on at 6:30 or 7 o'clock and watched the national network news. Now, of course, we are on an intravenous feed of information with new impulses, inputs every millisecond. And of course, the way this is played out on social media has dominated the narrative.
I mean, that's pretty insane. The way it's played out on social media has dominated the narrative. I mean, the way it's played out on social media is actual live footage of the destruction.
And you have a social media ecosystem environment in which context, history, facts get lost, and the emotion, the impact of images dominates. And we can't discount that. But I think it also has a very, very, very challenging effect on the narrative.
I mean, again, I really don't think he realizes what he's saying. He says that it has a challenging effect on the narrative, and by the narrative in that sentence, he's referring to the narrative that they want to have people believe.
Yeah, a small parenthetical point.
All right, pay attention to what he's about to say. He prefaced it with a small parenthetical point, meaning in parentheses.
Which is some wonder why there was such overwhelming support for us to shut down potentially TikTok or other entities of that nature.
Shut down TikTok and other entities of that nature.
If you look at the postings on TikTok and the number of mentions of Palestinians relative to other social media sites, it's overwhelmingly so among TikTok.
Oh my God, it just keeps getting worse. Basically, he literally is just admitting that it's because of the overwhelming mentions of pro-Palestinian content on TikTok, which is basically why they want to ban TikTok.
Broadcast. So I'd note that's of real interest, and the president will get the chance to make action in that regard.
Anyway, that's the whole interview. Again, that is Mitt Romney and Secretary of State Antony Blinken. I don't know if you interpreted that differently. I would love to get your opinion, but I could tell you that there are millions of people who interpreted it the way I interpreted it, and yeah, I'd be interested if you saw it differently. So anyway, I think the TikTok thing, the invasion of Rafah, like all this stuff is going to happen. It really is. What are they going to ban TikTok? Oh, that one I don't know. I don't know if they're going to be able to do that because, man, I think people would go nuts. There's a couple things that I think people will really, really, really revolt against. I think banning of TikTok is one of them. And then there's definitely going to be a giant faction of this country that goes crazy if they try to put Trump in jail, or if they put Trump in jail, because they are trying to put him in jail. But man, if he gets found guilty and gets sentenced to jail, there's gonna be chaos. Talk about a civil war. There absolutely will be. There's going to be some craziness that goes down. All right, shifting gears. I did want to have one final little discussion about OJ. I'm like obsessed with OJ. I really am. I've reached out to Marcia Clark, Chris Darden, and Ron Shipp. Well, Ron Shipp's a hard guy to get a hold of, but I did finally track an email down for him. So I actually have sent emails to all three of those people because I'd love to get them on the podcast. That would be awesome, actually. But anyway, again, this Made in America documentary, which is on Netflix now, I really do recommend it. I really do. And mainly because obviously it is about the OJ case and it is all about that, but man, it's really about something bigger, and it really is about the racism and the generational hate of racism that really has been the case. And you know, I don't want to spoil it for people, but just know that what they do a really nice job of in the documentary is they do a nice job of intertwining, obviously, the facts and take on the OJ case, but intertwining that with kind of the racial tensions and animosity and really the racial history between the LAPD and the black community in Los Angeles, let alone the United States, actually. But obviously this is concentrated in Los Angeles, which then culminated in, the Rodney King situation. And so that really was that was at play during the OJ trial. Because here's the crazy thing, and anybody that understood or knew about OJ was not like in the black community. He was not loved by the black community, nor did he want to be. He really did not want to be part of the black community. That's actually the more important part. Was it's not whether the black community loved him. He didn't want to be part of that community. He really didn't. I mean, Jay-Z's song, "I'm not black, I'm OJ." I mean, seriously, that's such a great and powerful lyric, because that's what OJ wanted. He really did. He did not want to be known as a black person. He wanted to be known as OJ. He really, really wanted to transcend color. The most obvious reflection of that was when he was in college. That was during a time when Jim Brown, Muhammad Ali, Bill Russell, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, all of the incredible black athletes at the time who were at the top of their game. And then at that time, OJ was probably the top college football player. They basically were doing a lot of, activism, and they invited OJ to everything, and he didn't show up to anything. That's actually pretty insane if you think about it. Imagine being a college age kid, sophomore, junior in college. Now, granted, you're the shit in college. Like, he was the number one college football player at the time. But then imagine being invited to anything, being hosted by people that are a lot bigger than you, and quite frankly, that you should probably envy and worship to an extent. I mean, especially somebody like Jim Brown, who was a running back. But you've got Jim Brown, Muhammad Ali, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Bill Russell. My gosh, like I feel like anybody, black, white, green, yellow, whatever color, a Martian for that matter, if you got invited at that time by that group, I don't care what it was. I think I would have robbed a bank with them if they're like, "Hey Ray, we need a driver." I'm like, "I'm in. Let me just hang with you guys." You know what I mean? These are like not only the top athletes of the time, but these are like some of the top athletes in history. I mean, really. I mean, gosh, they really are. That'd be like getting invited to like something being hosted by like Michael Jordan, Kobe, Larry Bird, and Magic Johnson, and you turn it down. And he did. OJ turned those things down repeatedly in college, which again, at that tender age, gosh, you would think he would be so starstruck and relish the opportunity, to be around those guys. I think that's what makes him really such. I mean, he was a pretty bad guy for sure, but I also think that's what makes him so, oh my gosh, what's the word I'm looking for? Just so Well, I guess interesting and definitely a dichotomy, but it also makes that whole situation so interesting because it just shows you really probably how bad and how much racism and overall brutality the black community must have endured for decades from LAPD and let's say from the police in general. I guess. I mean, obviously, I'm not privy to any of that stuff, but it really, it really does show that they must have endured so much that they were like, okay, you know what? We don't even care that OJ is not really wanting to be part of our community. We're going to embrace him, and we're kind of going to use this as a way to, almost like get one back on him, and that's kind of how it played out. That really is kind of how it played out.
This was a case about blood. That was the heart of the case. Simpson had cuts on his left hand, particularly on the middle knuckle.
How did you get the injury on your hand?
To the left-hand side of the bloody shoe prints, walking away, there were 5 blood drops found. Those blood drops were tested through different DNA analyses and by different labs, and it came back to Simpson.
The blood drops at the scene came back to Simpson. He had cuts on his knuckles.
Quite simply, that was Simpson's blood. Inside the Bronco, we have Nicole's blood. We have Ron's blood smeared inside there, and we have OJ's blood.
I mean, they had Ron's blood, Nicole's blood, and OJ's blood inside the Bronco.
2.1 miles away from the Bundy crime scene, we've got blood drops in the driveway, blood drops inside the house.
The best thing about scientific evidence is that it's objective. It doesn't have biases or prejudices. That's why we concentrated so much on DNA. We went to 2 labs. First time ever that's been done. We gave them a sample after sample. We gave the opportunity to prove that it wasn't O.J. Simpson. I could have been the biggest hero perhaps in Los Angeles, if not the country, if I could have walked into court a week after he'd been arrested and said, guess what? It's not O.J. Simpson. But all the DNA evidence points to Mr. Simpson as being the person who committed those horrible crimes.
Anyway, man, I really found that interesting. I really did. I think the whole thing has such a bigger, almost message, but obviously bigger undertones. And, in some ways, there's applicability to what's going on today. And really, all I mean by that is, it's a bad world, man. It's a bad world. And there are bad people in this world who do bad things and they get away with it. They really do. And not everything is perfect and not everything is morally just and the way it should be. And, I think that as long as you, again, it's not like I want people to be negative and pessimistic in anything, but, I do think it's worth having an awareness. That's all. Having an awareness. Actually, self-awareness as well. A DSD pillar. But anyway, having an awareness. All right, everybody. Have a wonderful weekend. Have an awareness of having a great weekend. Call a spade a spade.
The ending was terrific.
This episode was brought to you by the new book, Deep Shallow Dive Into You, available now on Amazon in hardcover, paperback, as well as via Kindle. Pick up your copy today of Deep Shallow Dive Into You, a guide to having a more authentic relationship with yourself. Turns out it is indeed true. Bro wrote a book.